Welcome everybody to another episode of Cleaning and Cocktails. I got a good one here today. My boy Amar, he is the founder of Zenmaid. He has owned a cleaning company in the past as well. I believe it's called Fast, Friendly, Spotless. But we're going to get into all that.
Yep.
I just want to touch on two main points here, you guys. I have my beer because it's Cleaning and Cocktails, right? And Amar has coffee, but let me tell you why. This guy's on this call with me here, and it's 6 a.m. where he's at. He's across the ocean in Europe. So again, thank you, Amar. That's commitment, that's dedication, joining us on this call at that time. I appreciate you, man. But you guys know the show. What I do is I bring on subject matter experts, cleaning business owners, manufacturers, suppliers, and in this case, a tech founder with cleaning subject matter expertise as well. But Amar's got talents and skill sets beyond that, you guys. He's a SaaS marketing guru. He's called himself the digital marketing nomad. But most of all, because I'm an MMA fan, I got a Brazilian jiu-jitsu artist here as well. There's a lot of tidbits about Amar I'm going to get into. But dude, thank you so much. I appreciate it again. Like I said, you don't have to be on this call at 6 a.m. That shows how much you care about the industry and how much you want to, give back and share about it. But without further ado, Amar, thank you for joining me, my man.
Yeah. Thanks for having me. It's great to be here. I was telling you before we hit the record button that I'm actually a morning person. So I'm typically up about 5 a.m. without an alarm, and it frustrates my wife a lot because by the time my wife wakes up at around like 8 or 9 in the morning, I'm at least halfway done with my work day. So like from her perspective, I barely work, and it's like it's not that I barely work. It's just it all gets done when you're asleep. So yeah, but it's good to be here.
I don't get the chance to always bring on fellow tech founders, so you're going to hear a lot about that. But before we do, again, the best question, right, is how does somebody get into the cleaning industry, other than if it's second, third generation type deal, right? But you, coming from a marketing background, what was the jump like? What was that moment that you jumped into it and said, I'm going to open up a cleaning company?
Yeah, absolutely. So to go back like a bit, I grew up, I never really considered myself to be too entrepreneurial, but like in hindsight, it's kind of because I always compared myself to my more entrepreneurial friends, right? And I grew up in Silicon Valley. I grew up, in the heart of all like that technology and, Apple, Microsoft, all of that stuff. I mean, I remember there was one year that like a bunch of friends came to school with iPhones because Steve Jobs had run out of candy, right? Like there were just crazy stories like that, like every like couple of years that he just started passing out iPhones, right? And, just like crazy like stuff like that. And so at some point around like the end of high school, beginning of college, I read a book, the 4-Hour Work Week, which really planted kind of the seed of like owning a business and making money really on my own time. The point of that book is really talking about making money from anywhere in the world, but really it was about like, doing things on your own schedule and stuff. And so after that, I spent a bunch of time just looking for various kind of business opportunities and ways to just sort of do that. So honestly, I was more looking for like a way to sort of fund my lifestyle more than anything else. And so, bunch of failed like businesses. We can jump into those like if you're interested, but essentially I tried a bunch of things. This is all while working day jobs and all of like that stuff. And then I think it was in 2012, I ended up starting a maid service with a friend after we read like a series of posts online about starting like a house cleaning business coming from sort of a digital marketing sort of perspective where it was, hey, like, you don't need to hire everyone. You can use 1099 contractors to sort of validate the idea and to sort of get off the ground and stuff. And so my friend built us a website. I handled all of the people. And so we started this company, Fast, Friendly, Spotless, in Orange County in Southern California. And so that's essentially how I broke into the industry. And so with that, it was very much I think it's possible to actually do this without doing any of the cleaning. And I could already see that sort of route of if you're not having to do the cleaning, you don't actually have to be in person to do any of the hiring and stuff like that. So I could kind of see how you could actually get free from this business, even though a lot of people would consider a local service business to be sort of like a ball and chain kind of business, right? And like personally, I don't agree with that. I've seen too many people that have used commercial cleaning, residential cleaning, all of that stuff to just create such amazing freedom in their lives that like I just don't believe people when they say, oh, like you're never going to get like, sort of free from this business. Like maybe you'll make a lot of money, but you'll always be working like 60 hours a week. It's like that's not true. And there's so many examples of that. So anyway, so that's essentially how I got into the industry. About a year later, though, we were running into problems. I don't think that I picked the right business partner for that venture for a variety of reasons. And essentially around that point, one of my other friends approached us and said, hey, like, I've been talking to Amar a lot about what you guys are doing. I think that this like back end system that you guys have sort of built out for scheduling and how Amar is managing everything, I think that we could turn this into a SaaS and sell it to other maid service owners. And so that's where the idea from Zenmaid came from. And then, there were quite, I mean, honestly, that's about as simple as it was. But in hindsight, there were a lot of different sort of pieces to the market that made sort of our unique value proposition a bit, well, it made us stand out enough to obviously have business right now. And then just tiny correction from what you were saying is, so I actually didn't come from a digital marketing
Okay.
background. That one of the reasons that I started Zenmaid was because I had been doing digital marketing for my maid service for Fast, Friendly, Spotless, and I absolutely loved the
Got it.
marketing there, even though things weren't really working like in the business. The problem was at my day job, I was doing sales, and I'd been doing sales for 3 or 4 years at that point, and I kept applying to places, and no one would give me a job at even the most junior level of marketing, even though I could show what I was doing for this department. And even the company I was working for at the time wouldn't give me a chance. And at some point, I said to my boss, like, "Yo, like you need to move me over to the marketing team, or like I can't stay here. Like I'm not happy doing sales." And he essentially called my bluff, and I left about, I don't know, maybe 6 weeks later or so. And then, yeah, I've been traveling the world ever since and built Zenmaid from quite a few places around the world. That's
So
been fun.
I gotta tell you, man, I admire that. Like and it's crazy because I am seeing more of that, Amar. Like I am, so I am one of those people that I would say I'm guilty of the ball and chain assumption, right? Of you've tied down. How can you can't do it? So I don't. I think so I come from commercial though. So residential, I am seeing that from the residential side, especially that I literally
Yeah.
I just talked to somebody 2 weeks ago. Small, maybe 300,000 a year business. He's got no employees.
Uh,
He's got all 1099 contractors, and he's streamlined everything. It's
yep.
all
Exactly.
based on scheduling and booking and getting paid, right? So
Yeah.
I was just like, I told my team too. I was just like, man, I'm like that. I love what I do. I love where I'm at. I love everything that I'm doing. But if
Yeah.
it fits the style of what you, like you said, you even from the beginning, travel was a big piece of what you wanted to do, and lifestyle entrepreneur. I like that term too, because dude, I got to
Yeah.
respect, like if you, I would say you couldn't do that. Now that I see how you've done it, and I'm hearing how others are doing it, and with technology, yeah, man,
Yeah.
this could,
Yeah.
again, I'm astonished as how much you've traveled too, with, and I got 22 family members in my business, so maybe that's one thing that holds me down over here.
Yeah. Yeah.
But dude,
Definitely.
that is awesome, man. And that's another reason
Yeah.
why I wanted you on this show is I need people to hear that. Like it's okay. You can build a business very different from one another, because a lot of people do assume what you debunked, right? As far as this is not, it doesn't have to be ball and chain. It could be. You could
Yeah.
have, I've got a
Yeah. It
beautiful
could be.
office here, but
Yeah.
man, you've proven that it can't. So Zenmaid, for those that don't know, Zenmaid, I know it very well. I'm a big fan of it. You're very niche, and I love it when people are trying to be end to end on everything. I'm sure you agree with me, where it's like it's hard to be end to end, right? Just be great at a few things. Zenmaid idea comes. Obviously, your subject matter, because it's your space. So was this necessarily a pain point that Zenmaid came out of, or you just wanted to leverage what you've done, what you were doing with your current business, and just and commercialize that?
So honestly, it was more like, at least for me personally, it was more just an opportunity that popped up, that I had a friend that approached me and was like, hey, I can rebuild this as a SaaS platform, which was something that I just realized was not an opportunity that came up every day. Like one thing I think that's interesting is that I feel like when people are going to look at, guys like you and me, oftentimes they look at kind of the past history and think, oh, well, the person's successful now. Therefore, like success must have been like a given the entire time, right? And so I think one thing that's very interesting is like I started this company 9 years ago, right? And I'm not all that old. Like I was quite young, not that many years out of college when I started this business. Like I had like a lot to learn. And so really it was at that time I didn't have the best job experience. I didn't have great career prospects. And so when my friend, offered me this opportunity, it was like, hell yeah. Like you mean like you're gonna build this software, you want me to sell and market it, and if we manage to sell it for $50 a month and like we keep $25 each, like that sounds
That
amazing. Now
sounds
of course,
amazing.
like that's not how economics works like at all. I mean, like when we started this company, I thought that if we made $5,000 a month, that like we would make or like $15,000 a month, that we'd be making five or like $7,000 a month. And we were making $15,000 a month. It's like I might have been paying myself $1,000 a month. I think that was when I started traveling the world. So like things have changed a lot. And honestly, it was a big just sort of opportunity that popped into my hands. In hindsight, though, I think it's pretty easy to see why Zenmaid was able to get off the ground, even though it took us a lot of time to sort of like build traction. So essentially, we were the first software like in sort of the MAID space that was really doing like SMS, or the first MAID specific one that was doing SMS. So all the bigger competitors, Jobber, Service Autopilot, all those guys that existed a couple of years before us and were the primary competitors, they all had much better, much more powerful software at the time, but they didn't do SMS. And so our like wedge into the industry was, hey, we're ultra simple scheduling designed just for residential cleaners. And oh, by the way, you never have to remind your clients again about their appointments or follow up with them after, because we do that automatically. And that was our like, wedge into the industry, our foot in the door, that everyone early on really wanted that, the smaller service. And then over time now it's built up, and now we've got a full suite of all these various tools, credit card processing, payroll, all that stuff. So yeah.
Couple tidbits, because I heard you talk about when you started 2012. I myself
Yeah.
started the cleaning industry 2012. So check.
Nice.
One thing in comparison. Another thing in comparison, and I remember reading this,
Yeah.
and I don't know if it's still to this day, but I think I read you bootstrapped and are still bootstrapped, or did you ever get to a point you needed to raise funding, or are you in the bootstrap world like myself?
Um, Yeah, no, we're in the bootstrapped world. So like I still own about 40% of the company, and then the rest of it is split between my initial co-founder, my current CTO, and then our chief operating officers. We've got a couple more people that are on. We're bootstrapped. We have taken on some debt funding
Okay.
though, which is something that I would recommend you
No,
guys
that's
like looking
yeah.
into. Is now we're at a size where it's like I can pretty much click a button and get a couple $100,000 just like put into our bank account like the next day or the day after. So like every now and again we go, okay, the numbers are looking good. Or like recently we decided that we really, really wanted to step up our mobile and design game. And so we hired two people that were a bit outside of our budget. They're not going to be in a couple of months, but we were just like, okay, we're just going to take a bit of money and just make sure like this is covered. So a bit of both, but we made sure to bootstrap to the point that we're fully in control. So
That's
now
what,
like we take money on our own terms.
that's what I was going to tell you is that's got to feel good, right? Like this is on your terms.
Yeah.
9 years later, you're still in the driver's seat to not just be innovative and be creating these ideas and bringing them to reality. But yeah, man, again, for people listening, like that's a big kudos, because what people assume is, don't get me wrong, tech is hard to build, tech is costly, tech is very stressful. But for you to be in this 9 years and 9 years later still growing and bigger than you were in the beginning shows that you solved something that needed to be solved, and you're still solving something, right? So how did it evolve though, Amar? So from year one, Zenmaid being a scheduling software, you just said suite of tools. Like, is that the vision? You're seeing more and more pain points that you can solve all within the same niche industry, is it still?
Well, so it's not. So I probably shouldn't have said a suite of tools because it's more like a suite of like a features, right? So it's still all one scheduling software, but it's everything that's kind of related to
To
scheduling and
scheduling.
the
Okay.
back office, like automation and everything. We're just trying to continue to just be the absolute like best at what we do when it comes to scheduling. We're always tempted to sort of expand out into other things and to solve other problems for like for maid services. And at least personally, every time we seem to try to do that, it just seems to end up distracting us from like the core business. And like we've tried multiple times and we've always ended up sort of contracting it like back to just go back to focusing on just like being the best like at software. So I'm sure we'll take some other shots. And like we have actually tried to buy a couple of other software companies in like the industry, both a couple of the smaller competitors. I tried to buy one competitor that was like three times our size, which they weren't interested in for some reason. But
Hey,
hey, you
you're
gotta
still
you
gonna
gotta
try.
take
You're
your
still
shot,
gonna
right?
take a shot.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, exactly. Gotta shoot your shot. So that one was a big air ball, but
Trust me, I've had the door
but
slammed in my face
all
too. So
yeah, oh yeah. No, you're gonna that's gonna happen if you're gonna be an entrepreneur. People listening to this are probably used to that more than most. It's kind of what it takes.
this industry, right? So you refer to it, the maid service industry. Like, what what has
Yeah,
been rewarding for you to not only were you in it from a person that owned a maid service business, but like the solutions and the problems that or the problems you're
yeah,
solving with your tool. Because I got to tell you, man, I love the community that you've built with Zenmaid, right? Like the people that either ever come from a conversation that I had that they work with you or that they use Zenmaid or they're in the Facebook group, right? Because you have a nice
yeah,
sized Facebook group, dude. It's nothing but love. Like it's nothing but appreciation, true caring. It
yeah.
feels good, like right. Again, like it goes back to even your color scheme too. Like it's just a vibrant, feel good type of
Mhm.
brand. Where
Yep.
did you know that was going to happen when you first started, or was there a certain point that you said, hey, you know what, I want to build a community on top of what just the business?
On the branding side, that evolved over time, and we got very lucky with the mate with the naming of ZenMaid. That initially we'd actually named the company Made Desk, so as like a replacement for like your
Makes
desk, right?
sense.
Of like
Makes sense.
madedesk.com. And what happened was we were initially partnered with my initial co-founder in the cleaning business, and we ended up splitting from him. And so he actually had bought that domain and kept that domain. And so then because of that, me and my like co-founder who stuck around, Arun, we decided to rename as ZenMade. And so at the beginning, that was just something that at the time in Silicon Valley, there was like Zendesk, there was Zen
Yeah.
Payroll,
No, it
there were
makes
like a couple of
sense.
other
I
companies at
like
the
it.
time. Yeah, it was kind of part of the branding at the time. And like the hot thing at that time was to put like two words together to like make your company. Where now it's like random letters, like Foob or something,
Yeah.
right?
They don't even. You can't even enunciate or announce like pronounce it.
Yeah,
It doesn't make sense.
yeah, exactly. It doesn't make a sense, right? So we chose that, but then in the beginning and everything with the branding and stuff, like I knew that was sort of what we were going for. So I think like the initial like thing, the initial logo was like a yin yang like sign. And so we kind of knew like about like that stuff, but like I'm really bad with branding. And then so is my co-founder, right? So our design was always really, really bad. A little bit of a tangent, like funny story here is when my wife and I started dating, she visited our website. And then because we have really good marketing, our ads followed her just around the internet, right? So like, and this is like after like our second date. She's just like, yo, like I see you everywhere on my phone. I'm like, okay, well, this is obviously a great dating strategy, right? And and so like at some point she's just like, hey, like, it's clear you guys know what you're doing on the marketing side. You guys like, all the words are really good, but like for the love of God, like every single image looks like absolute shit. Like if you're gonna follow me around the internet, like at least let me redesign your ads. And so my wife actually ended up working for ZenMaid for like 2 years and essentially led most of our rebranding and everything. And so we went through all of those like exercises and talked about like how we want people to feel when they come into ZenMaid. And we want, like, the whole thing is everything is about about it being calm and serene and peaceful, and that like too many people that are working with other softwares or pen and paper or like Google Calendar or whatever, they dread opening up their schedule because their schedule is just a list of all the problems that they have to deal with every day.
Yeah.
And like with Zenmaid, our goal is like for you to come there and you to be like, my business is like running, business is taken care of,
I love it. That's a great message.
And so like,
great messaging.
yeah. And like a future thing that like we're working on implementing is having almost like an Uber style map so that you could just log into Zenmaid and you could just see on a real time map of your cleaners are making you this much money at this location, and here's one of your cars driving between jobs right now, and you just like come in and it just shows you like, hey, your operations are just on point right now.
It makes you feel better. You feeling better, you've won. Like you're winning in that day, that moment.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. And so everything about the company is in like that sort of like image. All of our content marketing, all of our branding, like all of that stuff is either about kind of like peaceful, serene, like running a maid service or running a successful and profitable maid service. So okay, so that's on branding, and then on community. So community, and this is actually something that I had made a note of for like a later question that you told me to like to prepare for this is like in terms of like building a business and everything. I think the most important thing for folks is to like build a business your way. There are different principles that in general you're going to want to follow to have a successful business, like charge more money and it costs for you to like deliver your service, right? And stuff like that. But beyond that, building a business, like everyone that's watching this and is thinking about building, whether it's you, Ricky, building a tech business, or whether it's, someone watching to build a commercial cleaning business or a residential cleaning business, we're all building these businesses to serve ourselves, right? Like the point is either to support our families or to give us freedom to go and travel or whatever it might be, to never have to go and work like a 9 to 5 again, or like whatever, whatever that reason is. And so for me, with building the community, I just wanted to have fun while doing this. And like building a business is lonely, and having an actual community of maid service owners for me has kept me engaged in the company for years, right? Like it's given me an outlet and a way to help people, because like a lot of people don't realize this, but I'm not technical like at all, right? So I didn't do any of the coding. The further, well, so maybe this will resonate with you a lot. So the first 3 years that Zenmaid was in business, in a lot of ways, it felt like I was very much out of control for like the value that was sort of delivered by Zenmaid, because my co-founder was the one coding everything. So I was doing the work of getting the software into more people's hands, but it didn't feel like I was actually adding any value. I felt like kind of like, almost like a leech sales guy or like a leech like marketing guy. And so a big thing here that was probably inspired by like Gary Vee and like, a couple other people, was just that idea of just how can I add value to people in a different way? How can I add value to people in some way that's not our software, so that people are more likely to want to talk to me, to engage with me, right? To talk about the software and all of that stuff. And so with that, we started the community, brought people in there, and then it was like, hey, ask your questions, we'll try to help you out. And I learned so much about the industry that way, because I literally spent 2 or 3 years building the Zenmaid mastermind, where when someone would ask a question, I would jump onto Google and go find the right answer. I'd look up the laws in their states. I'd do whatever it took to get the information to help them or whatever. And that went so far in our sales process and stuff.
That speaks volumes, Amar. That speaks volumes. I mean, that's where the last 2 years, that's really where, dude, again, it's funny. We were down the same road of how things just came to fruition, where I felt out of place when I started building Route. I was like, dude, I know cleaning, I know sales, I know how to market and brand. I don't know the technical aspects. So like the whole first year of being built, I'm like, what do I do? How can I help?
Yeah.
And like the value that you add, the groups that you add, the summit that you put on. Like I remember the first time I came across that, I had just missed, when was it? I think it was 2019, 2018 is when I first saw, I think it was 19. I saw it. I was like, man, this is different, right? Like I see summits, you see stuff for the industry, but it's really only the same 1 or 2 or 3 events that go on.
Yeah.
Yours came on, and then you see the different faces, the different expertise that they have, and it's just growing. So of course, I had to jump in last year, right? But it was I
So I
met
was about to
people.
ask. I was like,
That,
you were on the list
no,
last year,
last
right?
year I
Like, if
did.
not, someone on my team's getting fired.
No, no. So I jumped on, and it was like again, just different, right? Different. There's
Mhm.
true, real authenticity in your group. So I just wanted to
Yeah.
thank you for that, just because
Mhm.
people will thank me, but I'm like, there's others that do this. It is, man, it's amazing. Where because of the fact that you travel so much and you guys are remote for a sense, right? So I got to believe COVID really didn't affect the way you guys operate, right?
Not at
So
all,
that
no.
again, that shows people like it's okay. You can have a remote business. You can do things like this. Uh, Man,
Yeah.
that's
Just
amazing. That's
quickly,
amazing.
yeah, quickly on that point, because I just think it'd be a good resource for anyone that's listening to this. Like if you're listening to us chatting about like running a maid service or a commercial cleaning business remotely, and you're just like, oh, like that's not possible. Want to make sure like I'm not saying that it's easy, right? Like it's definitely not easy, but I just want to emphasize to you guys that it's possible. And there's two like things to check out there if you're interested. So if you go to zenmaid.com/remote, there is an interview that I did with Chris Schwab, who runs a 3 location maid service in the United States and splits his time between London and Japan. And then there's also Neil Perrick. Both of those guys you should see if you can get on the podcast, by the way, Ricky. But Neil Perrick has he's got a podcast that's on like running like remote franchises or something like that. But he's another one that's built a cleaning business and does it while traveling the world. That somehow we've never met, but we've got like so many friends in common, and we keep missing each other in the same places around the world. But yeah, like it's not easy, but it is possible, and it's something that like if that's what's important to you, and there's probably a lot of people listening to this that like going remote is like maybe not their worst nightmare, but it's just not feasible because you have a family, because you have kids. That's totally fine. Maybe you want to work towards having like a remote business so that you can coach your son's football team, every like Tuesday and Thursday afternoon and never have to be in the office. That's kind of what I was saying before is like we're all building these businesses for different reasons, but ultimately they're all to serve us and to serve our families. And so I think that if you sort of go back to that as like a first principle, you can really design businesses to make your lifestyle amazing.
Would you say there's a framework then that you had? Like, is there like because again, when I started, I was just like, oh, I have to have an office. I have to have a manager. I have to have payroll. I have to. It's like the have to haves, right? You have to have this.
Yeah.
Is there? I mean,
Yeah.
you already touched on two good resources, and I'll probably ping you to get. I'll get those links so I could put it in the description of this episode too, because I think that that's
Mhm.
important. That's a tangible piece that people can listen in and hear
Yeah.
that. But is there
Mhm.
is there other framework that you would say can
Well, I
assist with this? Because I think you're right. I actually
yeah.
there's got to be people that are thinking of this but never thought it could be possible.
Yeah, yeah. Well, so one thing that I found that's interesting is so people seem to think that running a business remotely or having a remote business is like something new. And really, when you think about it, this has been going on for hundreds of years, right? But it's just that hundreds of years ago, only the richest people, the absolute richest people could do that. But when you think about someone, if you instead of like thinking of yourself as like most people, I think of themselves as like the business managers or the business operators, even though they tell themselves that they're like the owner, right? But if you actually switch to the owner mentality, then things begin to become a lot more obvious. So, for example, like there's nothing wrong with you needing payroll or you needing to have an office or you needing to have a manager. None of those things stop you from going remote, right? The thing that stops most people from going remote is that they want to go remote right now. And they're like, that's not possible. And it's like, yeah, of course it's not possible, right? Like it probably takes most businesses, if you haven't thought about it, it'll take you 2 years to get to that point. But going back to what I was saying about like historically you would always have these local stores or franchises or whatever it is that the owners won't be there. right? That you walk in and there's just employees that are working there. The owner's nowhere to be seen. Nobody cares. You don't walk into a Subway and go, "Where's the owner? Why isn't he working here?" Right? And so, like, really, when you think about it, every single business, remote or otherwise, if it creates freedom for their owners, it just means that they've put the right systems and processes in place and matched those up with the right people in order to get the job done without the owner having to be there anymore. And that's the sign of a strong business, right? So, like, what's funny is that there's some people that are going to be listening to this that could already be running a 100% remote business because they're already systematized. They have the process in place, they've already made the hires, but maybe they're still just showing up because they feel like they have to. Then there's going to be people that are listening to this that are like, this guy is insane. I'm doing in-home estimates. I'm doing all the cleanings myself. And then I'm going home and texting all the people. How am I ever supposed to do this from the Caribbean, like on a beach? And it's like, well, in that case, you need to take it like, yeah, you're not there yet. And that's not something that you can just change by snapping your fingers or just by willing. With that, you've got to break down every system in your business and you've got to go, okay, like, do I need to be, or like, does this still need to be done? Do I need to be the one doing this? Can I hire someone else to do it? How do I do like quality control, right? Can I do this remotely? Can someone else do this remotely? All of like that stuff. But really all of it just comes down to systems and processes and thinking about yourself as like a replaceable component in your business. So most people, a very significant shift is if you're running your company right now and are just like, I can't get away, start thinking about how much money you would have to make, what sort of systems you would have to have in place, what sort of process, all of that stuff in order to hire one person to replace you, to continue running that one location with everything like in place. Or maybe they're running all the operations and then you're still doing marketing because marketing's an easy one to do from somewhere else or to do from home, right?
Hey guys, I deeply apologize. As you just saw, it was bound to happen, but our great episode with Amar actually got cut off. Hey, technical difficulties happen in this game, right? I'm gonna blame you, Amar. You were across the globe, all right? But I still wanted you guys to check out the episode that we were able to cut and put together. Amar's a great podcast guest, owner of Zenmaid. Check out his information. It'll be in the link down below. And please be ready for our next episode because I'm gonna have Amar back on again and we'll complete sharing the story and his journey. So again, cheers. Until next time, guys. Cleaning and Cocktails over and out.